show you how to install this hardware and all of this. If you can build the car, you can install the hardware. So we're going to show you how to do it so you understand that it's not hard to do. So we'll keep moving on. We made these two fixtures up in order to bond our fasteners to the molding. So we have a set of buckets bolted on in place to a mocked up front end. Our holes are drilled a single 3/16 hole, not oblong, not made big and goofy, just made. And so what we want to achieve is this stud glued in on the back side of the molding. So the molding fits down and you come in from the bottom and fasten it. So the back side of the molding, which I've already taken a picture showing it before I ground it, needs to get ground out. And it's pretty simple to do with a little handheld belt grinder. Believe it or not, I think these things came from Harbor Freight. And you come in on the back side where the grooves are and you just take it down. You got to rough it up for our epoxy to stick. We angle it a little bit, rough it up, take it down. And so the point of that is to make sure that this fastener, and these fasteners are made to do what we're doing with them. They come from a company we found, that they're made in Australia, but this fastener sits down inside of the part, and the epoxy, I'll show you once we're all done, the epoxy comes out through those holes and it bites to the back side of this fastener, and it's a done deal. So we'll mock these plates in place, our fastener in place. We're going to put down some aluminum tape first, just so we don't get our epoxy sticking to our part, and then we'll show you that. Once our aluminum foil is down, this will go into place. Once we have these fitting where we want them, we'll put a nut on the back side to hold them perfect, and then we'll epoxy them in. So we'll come back and show you that. Right now I'm prepping out our little fixture with our composite fastener. This little fastener we came across some years ago that we use in different things, but it's made to epoxy in or bond in to a part, and you have a stud. And these are all metric, because that just happens to be how they come, so we adapt to change. Everything is temporary and change is good. Here's another one of those deals where you got to change. And so a little fixture is similar to the same style that you're going to have in your C1 that you're going to put these moldings on. And so naturally these two back ones are a pain in the ass when they're in the car, and they're still kind of like the same way right here as well. And so what I'm doing is installing the studs, and I'm going to epoxy the studs to the part and then let it cure. And part of the reason of doing it with it in the fixture, which would be the same as your car, is you're going to get it to fit the body perfect. And I really suggest you buy it without the hardware installed, so you install it to your car. That way that it's going to fit your car the way that you know it's going to fit. And so what I did first was, this foil tape sometimes comes in handy. You buy it at Lowe's. It's in the heating and air conditioning department. It's duct tape, really. That's the real duct tape there. It's made for ductwork. And so it gives you something to put on the part to keep the epoxy from sticking to your car. And so I put down a layer of this aluminum tape and then a layer of masking tape. And then I come back with some paste wax. And so back to our fastener again. You notice on the bottom of the fastener, there's a little shoulder. And so that little shoulder keeps that fastener up off of the surface just a little bit. Because when we put our bonding material on here, we're going to put our bonding material on the back of our molding, and we're going to squirt a little bit so it goes through our mechanical fastener here, And that's the trick of holding it together, is that bonding material gets around the outside of that fastener and it really holds good. And with doing it on the car, it's going to let you manipulate that molding to fit exactly the way you want it to fit. So you look at our headlight bezels, and we don't have any screws on our headlight bezels. That's because when we made the bezel, it's a two-part mold. It's kind of complicated, but that's what's fun when you make something complicated. And so we put a weld nut plate inside of there, 4 of them. And so we have 4 studs sticking out of the back side of that bezel. And so when the bezel comes through there with the studs, it also helps hold the headlight buckets. The headlight buckets has 3 fasteners to hold the bucket in place. The bucket's been modified. We don't have them in here right now because of the purpose of what we're doing. But the bucket has been modified to hold the Dapper headlights, because the Dapper headlight is deeper than a stock headlight or what a stock bucket will do. And so you can cut out the back of your steel buckets and put your Dapper headlights in like that, but now the back of your buckets are exposed. If that's the way you want to do it, that's fine. But we've taken the time to make a bucket, and Andrew's already showed you the design of our bucket. And so we've done this to make the molding a one-piece molding instead of having it like it was originally from GM, where our molding comes over top of our bezel. Our bezel in turn does not have screws sticking through it, so it gives it a smoother look. And so it's all part of the Restomod, custom, whatever you want to call this fun world we live in today, because it is fun, I think. Now there's some of you out there that won't agree with me, and that's fine. I put up with it for almost 50 years now. Some of the guys out there that don't like what we do, but I think you're outnumbered today. I think we've got the tops on you now, and so I'm just having fun. Biggest thing I do suggest though is to put this together with epoxy. And the reason I say epoxy is because epoxy gives you a nice pot life. The epoxy that we use here, and we share it, we sell it, has good pot life, especially this time of summer when it's warm out. Gives you a little more time to work with it and you're not rushed. That's the problem with the polyester product where you use hardener like you use in body filler. The pot life is really short. And so if you got an extra 10-15 minutes to work with something and you're not rushed, it takes a little more time. But nice thing is it gives you more time. Here's the factory headlight bucket for C1, how shallow it is. And then there's our bucket that's made for the Dapper headlight. Something else you'll notice in here is we put all the little spots where you're going to drill a hole, where your fastener comes through. And it takes all the factory hardware. As far as the springs and the adjuster screws, they're all marked in there where to drill. The only thing it doesn't have are these 4 brackets for the screws coming through, because our fasteners are made in the headlight bezel itself, and it comes through these existing holes, and that's part of what helps hold this whole thing together. Is there's 3 fasteners holds the bucket in, then when you put the 4 that holds the headlight bezels in, it works. So you put this whole thing together, you get your buckets in, your bulbs in, you adjust your bulbs, then you install your bezels. Pretty basic. Try to keep things as basic as we can. As you can see, the molding fits on top of the fasteners, and now is when you line up that molding perfectly to fit the point of the headlight bezel. And that's why I suggest it's best to do it on the car that you're putting this on, because I can make this fit this bezel perfect here. And if your car has been worked where your bezel is off one side or the other by something as simple as a 1/16 of an inch, it's not going to fit as good. If you want us to install them, we can. We're going to have 2 different prices with them installed and without. But as you can see right now, as you come down here, that molding is touching the body and not touching the fasteners. So when we put our epoxy in there, we're going to put the molding down. We're going to tape the molding in place. We're going to walk the hell away from it. This side's prepped out to fit when you're grinding. If you get carried away and you go through with the grinder a little bit, which I did, and I practiced this a lot, but squirt a little extra epoxy in there. Get yourself plenty of epoxy in those holes. And now you see you can control how that tip is going to fit. And once we have this fitting where we want it to fit, we're going to put a piece of tape on it and hold it. There's two separate molds for these. If you don't like the way it fits one way, try it on the other side, figure out which one fits the best, and go with that. So the important thing is to get the tip of the molding dead center on your headlight bezel. And once you have it where you like the looks of it, you're going to tape the front of it into place. You're going to dry run this thing. We're going to fit it like everything else you do. Keep fitting. Make sure you got it where you want. If you got to grind some off the back or shape the back a little bit different, take the time to do it. But the key is to get that molding to fit right there. And looking at your gap down the side of it, you can feel that there's a little bit of a play in there on that mechanical fastener. You can still move this so you know the mechanical fastener that's floating above it. So this is what we're going to do once we have everything where we want it. We're going to put our tape down. We're going to hold it with tape. We got our molding right where we want it. It's in place. And coming down here, you can feel this molding moving just a little bit. So that tells me that our fastener is out of our way. And so with that said, we're going to open that up. We know this molding is going to be on this side. So we're going to flip it over. This one's going to be on this side. We're going to flip it over, put it towards the inside. Blow this off. Then we're going to take a little acetone, or you could use lacquer thinner, put it on our rag, just come back to the back side and hit the bare fiberglass to make sure there isn't any dust or any foreign product, any dust or foreign object. I always do this when I'm doing body work. I'll wipe down the area with a little acetone or thinner before I put any body filler on a panel. Then I'll shape it. And if I have to put a little bit more on, always blow it off good, wipe it with a little more juice so that you know that it's good. So now I'm going to go over here and mix up some epoxy, and I'll be back. So we're going to come down our tab, and where our tab is, we're just going to make sure a little bit comes through that tab. It's bottoming out against our foil tape. And the nice thing again about the epoxy is the pot life. And before we put that tab molding on top of these tabs, we're going to put some epoxy on the back of that molding. Doesn't have to be a whole lot, just enough so it marriages up to our pieces we put down there. And so now we're going to turn this over, and Todd's going to start at the point, get the point right down in the center of that. And so we have that holding in place there. So now we're going to take a piece of tape, have that dead in the center, and a piece of tape is going to hold that. We have this going down the car the way we want it. Now we're going to walk away from that for a day till tomorrow. It'll kick overnight. Now something you got to keep in mind, you got to make sure you have your sweep going inside your hood surround and that it's not sagging down on you. In '58 they had a reinforcement that they put in there, and they thought they had the front end fixed problem, but they never did. And so there is a fix for that.
If a customer had it and it was really kicked up, would they have to grind it, or?
Well, if it's not going down enough, you got to grind more off the back side of the molding.
Okay.
There's a problem with that. Depending on your fit, you can always fit the bottom of that just a little bit more, but it keeps wanting to pull up right here.
Really, at this point, if you got it on the car, and if it keeps wanting to come up, you can find a little bit of weight, put something on there. You can find something in the garage just to hold it down just enough for the epoxy to kick.
That's a great idea.
Or you can put a screw in it.
Absolutely not, Todd. I can't believe you said that.
We'll have to bleep that out.
No, leave that right in there.
Quite heavy enough.
Perfect. Okay, next morning. So now we came in, we've removed all of our nuts from the back side. Now on our fixture here, our holes aren't oblong or oversized, they're right on the money, so got to work it up and out. So they come out of our fixture. You can see the back side of it, how that epoxy comes through the nubs, the holes in the fasteners. Comes out pretty sweet. Now we'll come and clean up that little bit of flashing and we're good. We're going to come over here to our 58 to show you how it fits the 58. And you can see that's how the holes normally look. They're kind of big and oblong. Fits right down there like it's supposed to. So you finish body working it, making it fit like a glove, and you're good to go. Thanks for watching.